Hey everyone, welcome back! Dual Keres Prime has shipped with Khora Prime. The big question is it better or worse than Nami Skyla Prime? Or does it not matter? We've got all the math at our fingertips today, and we can finally settle this question once and for all. I'm sure you've picked up the new Keres by now and probably felt how powerful it is, but how exactly does it match up? Let's take a closer look. The Dual Keres Prime has received monstrous buffs compared to its predecessor. It's gained only 4% crit chance with its priming, but 10% more status, and a massive 56% raw base damage increase. So it crits slightly harder, but a lot more slash procs and a lot more raw to back it all up. It has definitely gone the better end of the deal compared to the Hystrix Prime, but it also stands alongside the shadow of Nami Skyla Prime. Where does it stand exactly? It may not be intuitive at starts, but Nami Skyla is significantly stronger than Keres before accounting for a full build. This is because the first crit tier scaling is non-linear, so until you can hit 100% crit, the fact that Nami has way higher status completely overshadows Keres' notable crit advantage. But that only really matters for early game when you can't finish a weapon build correctly. What happens when you compare optimal finished builds? I'm going to show you a mostly accurate comparison in this table. Just keep in mind, it leaves out certain more complicated mechanics such as damage quantization, so the values will be slightly off from in-game. But what I want you to pay attention to are the blue columns, and the second and third paired rows. These represent spring-loaded builds in yellow and gladiator might builds in orange. These are the relative performances of either weapon to Nami Skyla Prime, meaning Nami's values will always be 1. You can see at the top what I meant about Nami being a better weapon for early players, where, unmodded, it significantly outperforms Keres. But this is an endgame focused channel and we make endgame focused builds, so let's see what we get when all mods are available. Let's focus on the furthest right blue column first. This essentially means that Nami basically always slightly outperforms Keres, but there is a very important consideration to take here. Damage quantization is not taken into account, and while dual sword stances have very little force proc slash, they are still there. A value this close means they basically perform identical, and calculations run by my mutuals in the build channel determine that Dual Keres is on average actually 1% higher EDPS than Nami on a full build when only considering slash setups. Since their optimal performance is so similar, then their true performance depends on specific parameters. I'm gonna outline those below. Case 1. You're on base steel path against armored enemies. 2 top tier melees and the best dual swords in the game can easily bleed these enemies out with just a few slash procs since enemy HP is so low. So the better performer will be whichever melee inflicts slash procs faster. Lower armored enemies might even die to just a single slash proc. For this scenario, Nami Skyla wins, because the question becomes how quickly and how many slash procs you can deal at the start rather than how much sustained DPS or raw damage you can shove in to scale into slash. And this is because burst DPS matters more in early steel path and is weighted towards getting that armor bypassing slash sooner while also downplaying the innate raw damage on a slash setup due to excessively high armor resist already. Also keep in mind Nami attacking faster means you are less likely to overcommit attacks on an already dying enemy if you play properly. But if you don't pay attention, you're also more likely to overcommit since animations begin again faster. This setup highlights the average % slash per second ratio to Nami Skyla column. Case 2. You're facing Corpus units, or a heavily buffed setup on base steel path. Against Corpus units, unarmored units, or a big buff setup, you can actually go raw damage on both dual swords, however you will still need a primer. When you're considering only raw damage, Dual Keres Prime actually massively outperforms Nami Skyla Prime by roughly 70 to 75% more EDPS on a finished build. So if you do need to build raw damage, Dual Keres Prime is straight up the best dual swords for this purpose. Of course, I'm only considering Rivenless today, so that everybody has access and no RNG or big plant price tags. This represents the raw damage per second ratio to Nami Skyla column. Case 3. You're doing endurance content. Slash reigns kinkier if even a single enemy unit type that matters has armor. So we would be looking at the final column. This is the case where Nami performs only about 5% better according to my calculations, and only 1% worse according to my mutuals calculations. Since endurance content is generally about sustained DPS, as anything outside of the strongest builds will require several seconds of attacking even trash fodder units assuming you don't have armor strip, it will not matter which of these two weapons you use. Therefore, use whichever one you want for endurance. The conclusion? It doesn't really matter which one you pick, against unarmored enemies, Corpus units, or massive buff setups. While Keres performs much better, both of these melees are top tier weapons and will trash them instantly regardless outside of Endurance, where Keres can pull ahead. Against base steel path armor, Nami wins through bleeds by a landslide due to only needing a few slash procs to kill and base damage being irrelevant. Endurance. They're literally equal performance if enemies have armor, but if you want to really min-max, craft both. They each excel at different things in relevant level ranges if you're willing to swap weapons, whereas endurance runners won't care which one they choose. Nami may still feel slightly better to use due to its higher attack speed, but honestly the gap is nearly non-existent. It's a relative 6.4% attack speed gap. Alright, let's get into those builds, shall we? They're very standard and shouldn't take very long to cover. Basic slash setup. This is known as a cow barf build. Works on any slash focus melees with quick melee spam. What is cow barf? It's an acronym. C for condition overload, O for organ shatter, aka crit damage, W for weeping wounds for status scaling, B for blood rush for crit chance scaling, A for attack speed, so prime fury, R for range being primed reach, and F for faction, since we double dip with a primed bane for 2.4 times more damage. Dual Keres hits 172.8 crit chance with just blood rush, reaching mostly oranges, but consider dropping spring loaded for gladiator might, as that will boost your crit to 208% for all oranges only, with the rare spicy reds. It will also boost your crit multiplier from 4.9 to 6.5x. The Gladiator Might variant is what I would recommend for Endurance, since bigger slash scaling matters since enemies will take longer to kill. For base steel path where enemies die easily, I would actually recommend Spring Loaded for the extra range, pushing you from 5.5 to 7.5 meters. With the low EHP, even with 0.5 follow through, you should still be able to cut through them like butter. This is because Weeping Wounds boost Keres to 129.6% slash, meaning you will proc bleeds almost every single hit with your natural 58% slash weight. I would also strongly recommend running this with Arcane Strike on your frame for even faster attack speed if you're able to run it. Because we are on a condition overload setup, this means you do need a primer, as pure slash setups are generally quite weak without primers to back them up. But with primers, the true damage scaling of bleed procs surpass everything else when armor is in play. Recommendations are a viral radiation epitaph built like this with optional extra range with primed fulmination over an augur mod if so desired. The augur mods help shield gating by contributing to the set bonus on how much shields you regenerate per ability cast, which is vital if you're running that with Decay Dragon keys on. Alternatively, the other popular pick is a Kuva Nucor. Magnetic Nucors are more universal because it will let you prime viral and magnetic, meaning slash will do bonus scaling on procs against all HP types, whether shield or health. Microwave also counts as an extra status effect, so you'll still get viral, radiation, magnetic, heat, and microwave for 5 stacks towards condition overload. Impact progenitors can be handy on raw damage setups when you don't rely on slash, as hemorrhage can add a 6th different status before your melee starts DPSing. The only other build I can recommend today is a raw damage setup, whether corrosive against base steel path or pure toxin against Corpus. You could also go gas against infested, but they are pretty paper already. If you're going against Corpus, you only need to replace one mod. This would be the flex slot, meaning you drop spring loaded, or gladiator might if that's what you had slotted, for primed fever strike. That's all there is to do, and obviously change the prime smite to Corpus. Toxin procs also bypass shields, so Weeping is still handy to apply toxin procs that double dip with the primed smite. If you're facing infested, you mod gas. If you're facing unarmored, you mod viral. If you're facing base steel path armor and you have enough damage, you can go corrosive. All 3 of these secondary elements use toxins, so we only need to replace a second mod somewhere. My recommendation is to drop Prime's Fury and rely on Arcane Strike to maintain maximal crown clear potential, but if you don't want to give up attack speed, then your other option is to drop Weeping Wounds. However, you should only drop this if you feel the gas, viral, or corrosive procs from your melee will be irrelevant in the DPS required to kill enemies. This is still a primer focused setup, as Dual Keres as a weapon in general does not have enough raw base damaging crits to allow it to consistently kill at a good rate, even on base steel paths with just prime pressure point. The last topic today, we will discuss our stances. This is a simple one. We have Carving Mantis, the generic catch-all stance. You probably already have this leveled. I do not recommend using this one because its main draw is the excessive amount of force slash procs it has on the neutral melee combo. As Keres is a slash heavy weapon, it does not benefit much from these force procs as a low slash weapon would, nullifying the stance's main benefit. The stance also has much lower average normalized damage per second as a result, and this only negatively impacts Keres. Crossing Snakes has some of the highest DPS of any stance in the game with its neutral melee combo, east to west. However, it doesn't have as much horizontal range as other stances. This is a single target focused stance perfect for killing acolytes, demlists, and bosses. So if you want the highest DPS potential possible, you can pick Crossing Snakes to sacrifice some combo modified range for massive DPS. It also has really good motion values that don't lock you in animations long. Swirling Tiger is much better for trash mob clearing. Not only does it have a single slash force proc on the neutral melee unlike Crossing Snake's 0, but it has extremely wide horizontal range as well as a force knockdown on the final hit that opens enemies to ground finishers if so desired. Dual swords have a 800 times 2 force bleed on their ground finisher, so whatever you hit it with is guaranteed dead. Being able to set this up whenever you want with the optimal stance combo is icing on the cake. The motion values on the neutral melee are also very good on this stance, making it comfortable to use. The block combo is also the exact same move sequence, meaning you can actually just perma-block if you want while keeping optimal DPS and allowing you to insta-center the camera if desired. The forward melee combo, Raking Flesh, also has absurd horizontal range and is fully usable too. However, it has a knock-up as part of the sequence towards the end for lifted status and may be undesirable if you cannot kill enemies in 1 to 2 rotations. And there you go, a full breakdown of our newest Prime dual swords and how it stands compared to Nami Skyla Prime. Instead of being better or worse, DE has succeeded in making its equal that excels or lacks in different areas to the point that they can now be distinguished as specialized tools. It all comes down to base steel path or endurance, unarmored or armored, raw damage or slash. For endurance runners, they're basically equal. So it will mostly be style points, so whichever one you can fashion better with your setup or what you feel more comfortable using. Cheers! If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible. Like I've done covering the new Echoes of Zeraman update as well as post TennoCon 2022. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. You won't miss out on any of that, do you? And that'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.